Hello students, welcome to the series on personal selling. Today we are going to study evaluating the performance of salespeople. In this we will basically cover the concept of evaluation, the impact of evaluation on the productivity of salespeople, and the basic techniques to enhance the kind of sales for the company. Now employees are important for the company and they are basically there so as to give a kind of a production or a turnover which enhances the value and the reputation of the company. Employees are the basic assets. They have a fire by which they work. But if the employees are not passionate about their work, it is genuinely going to affect the company's productivity. So it is very essential that we evaluate the performance of the salespeople. Now evaluation is a part so as to enhance the kind of the abilities of the people. According to Woodrow Wilson, you are not here merely to make a living. You are here in order to enable the world to live more amply, with greater vision, with a finer spirit of hope and achievement. You are here to enrich the world and you impoverish yourself if you forget the errand. So it is necessary that we must have the passion and the fire and the desire to work. Sales is not an easy job. It requires a lot of commitment and loyalty in order to enhance the value for the company so as to grow up. We have to evaluate and measure the employee's performance. According to James, evaluate what you want because you get measured by what you produced. So basically you have to genuinely relate people in order to their performance by which they are rated according to their abilities. According to the Parker, it is our individual performances. No matter how humble our place in life may be, that will in long run determine how well ordered the world may become. So whatever job we have to enhance the ability of the people so that genuinely they can give a kind of a result. Now evaluation is a kind of a system by which we try to build a feedback from the customers, from the stakeholders and from the society by which people are rated. 360-degree feedback system is a kind of a evaluation technique by multiple raters. This helps the salespeople to understand better their abilities and add value to the organization. See this model where the salespeople have been evaluated by many managers and by many customers and stakeholders. The rating and the evaluation is done by the sales manager, the team manager, the internal customers, the external customer and by himself also. So this is the kind of the estimation of the goals and the targets, what you have achieved, what are the standards you have to give to the company and what is the kind of the expectations you have from yourself. So this is the kind of the balancing in such a way that it measures the performance. But then the companies do have a kind of a measurement impact in terms of the quantitative and qualitative aspects both. What is to be measured? It is not only the targets, it is the kind of the abilities and the kind of the relationships which you have with the customers is also important. Now what to measure is a kind of a basic impact which is shown over here in this model. Now we have the company sales which have to be measured and it is the industry sales we have to take into consideration. Measure the actual figures and the percentage change for each of the following that is relevant for the business. This relates to the measurement by product category that gives you the total sales. This is by the customer, by trade channel, by market sector. This is by both. It is by volume and by value. This is the monthly, cumulative, year-to-date performance and moving to the annual date performance, and this gives the total impact in order to enhance the market share for the company. So this model basically gives you the impact on the kind of the company sales which are a part of the industry sale, that is what is the company's market share in comparison to the industry sales, and this is the basic impact by which the performance is measured. Now let's study the key issues in evaluating and controlling the salespeople performance. These techniques are based on the kind of the outcome based perspective and the behavior based perspective. The outcome based perspective is related to focus the measurement on the basis of the results and the targets and the kind of the sales turnover given by the salespeople to the company. but the behavior based perspective is related to the kind of the subjective analysis of the positive behavior of the salespeople, the kind of the conflicts arising in the market, and the kind of the rude behavior or a kind of a relationship building behavior of the people. So, if the relationship building behavior is positive, it genuinely adds a value to the company. But if you are in a conflicting situation and creating a kind of problems for the company, then it is a serious issue where you have to tackle the employee. The perspectives of the sales performance evaluation relate to the monitoring of the people. It relates to the managerial directions and the abilities of the managers to control the behavior, and it is basically a technique to evaluate the kind of the basic efforts so as to contribute to the attainment of the objectives. We have to considerably do a kind of a monitoring so as to involve a kind of a strategic base to genuinely have a control over quality. Now, the dimensions of sales people performance evaluation are shown over in this model. These dimensions relate to the kind of the behavior, results, profitability, and the professional development of the salespeople. If these variables and the dimensions are positive, it gives a kind of a positive impact to the company. The criteria for performance evaluation relates to the kind of the relationships into the market. It is the number of sales calls, it is the kind of the customer complaints, the basic reports submitted in the company, the kind of the training, and the kind of the letters and the awards you achieve in the company's basic performance issues. Now, the professional development of a person relates to the abilities or the skills by which he is able to perform the job into the market. The characteristics of the salespeople basically include the concepts like attitude, product knowledge, it is the initiative, innovativeness, the aggressiveness, and the kind of the positive attitude and the kind of the ethical behavior by which he relates to himself to the clients. Now, the criteria which is based on the results is important because here we genuinely measure the kind of the market share and the accounts which the people have in the market and the kind of the quota which he is able to achieve by his performance. Research shows that achieving results have a kind of a positive impact on the behavior of the people. This increases a kind of a self-confidence and a kind of association with the company. Now, the market response framework is important for evaluation. We have shown you in this model the basic consideration which impacts the evaluation characteristics. Now, we have the salesperson's factors that basically relate to his characteristics in terms of roles, perceptions, it is the aptitude, the skill level, and the motivation. But the environmental factors also put an impact on these ability. The environmental factors relate to the control unit, the attractiveness of the business, and the kind of the position of the company into the market. The organizational factors relate to the marketing effort and the kind of the sales management team effort. This basically manipulates the behavior of the salespeople to give an effort and a quality to the kind of the work done in the market. This helps in planning and control, which gives a behavior in terms to give results and quality to the company. The elements which are important in assigning the duties to the people relate to the kind of the evaluation which people have achieved results for their previous tasks done. This basically relates to the concentration of business within the territory so as to achieve and crystallize the basic concepts to the real volumes of the sales. This is the kind of the size of the territory which is given to the salespeople, which will affect his performance. It is the kind of the difficulty of the market area. It is the kind of the complex impact of the factors which basically rate his performance. If the market areas are tough, but still if he is giving less results, then it is possible that we rate the employee in a positive way. Now, when we take up the issues related in terms, what is the kind of the support given by the company is also important. Is company basically giving a kind of a financial support? Is the company building a kind of a relationship which is not harassing the employees? And is it possible that the supervisors who are looking after are genuinely giving the basic instructions and commands in a proper way? So, assigning of roles and duties is important before you evaluate the employees. The criteria for performance evaluation basically relates to profitability. Of course, that is very important but still the company's impact on behavior and other subjective issues is also important. Now, salespeople have an impact on the gross profits through the kind of the specific products that they sell in the market. The salespeople affect the net profits of the company. It is the kind of the basic revenue given to the company. It is the gross margins per sale, return on investment, the number of orders secured, and the selling expenses versus the budget given to them. So, this basically gives you a kind of a measure how well they are doing into the market. Now, whatever method of performance evaluation you select has to be genuinely built in such a way that it has the ability to define the characteristics related in such a way that it calculates the kind of the reliability of the employee. It is a kind of a valid method, it is a standardized method, it is a practical method of measurement, and basically it is a method by which you can compare people, and it is a kind of a useful method which genuinely measures the basic skills and the abilities of the people. The kind of the basic evaluation methods relate to the kind of the techniques which are basically performance oriented, and they are related to the kind of the result oriented in terms of the targets achieved by the company. Now, the kind of the ranking methods which we try to select in terms so as to rank the employees in the order of their performance relate to the kind of their performance done. These methods basically evaluate the individual performances and try to build a kind of a merit list. Now, the key issues related to the ranking method of performance evaluation basically relate to a kind of a decision where we built a kind of a merit list according to the kind of the performance. This kind of basic evaluation gives an impact in terms of rating of the employees by which the abilities are measured in terms of their relative performance. Now, let us see this form by which we evaluate the people in the organization. This is a job performance appraisal form. Here we have the kind of the key performance indicators, then we have the standards of the performance, the actual achievement of the people, the rating, and the kind of comments given by the supervisors. The rating is done on the basis of the call rate, call coverage, it is the conversion ratio, the pioneer calling, the distribution, display, sales target, market share, territory profitability, complaints. The overall rating is given on the scale of 1 to 9, and then the comments. Now, the kind of the rating also relates to the skills and the competencies, the selling skills, the administration skills, organization, communications, planning, decision, time management, and interpersonal relation. Again, overall rating on the scale of 1 to 9. Then we have the job performance summary on the scale of 1 to 9 and the comments by the supervisors. So, this is the kind of the form by which the evaluation is done in the basis of a system where a calculation of the basic performance is done on the scale method. Now, the subjective factors are also rated on these scales. Let us see the kind of the strength of the employees in terms related to the development areas. The strength relate to the personal characteristics and the attitudes. This is the initiative, integrity, decisiveness, adaptability, flexibility, judgment. It is the tenacity, enthusiasm, reliability, energy, motivation, and the right mental attitude. Rating, comments. Overall rating given on the scale of 1 to 9, and then the kind of the basic rating of the overall subjective factors. Here the potential of the employee is calculated, and according to this the training and development is recommended. The overall appraising rating is always on the scale of 1 to 9, and the basic comments by the supervisors are given in this column. This is signed by the first line manager and then again signed by the second line manager. Here the signed basically is a kind of a concept where the date and the basic measurement in terms of the rating is done. This forms basically give a kind of a planning concept to the organization where a change can be decided in order to build up a strategic issue for the growth of the company. The change is related to the kind of the change of behavior in terms to remodify the employee in such a way that the skills and abilities are updated. The kind of the training is imparted to learn a particular skill, or a kind of a counseling or a kind of a basic coaching is given so as to enhance the abilities of the people in the market. The feedback system is important so as to build a positive relationship of exchange of information from both the salespeople and the management. The stages in providing the feedback basically relate to the kind of the fact and the process system built up into the organization. The facts you have, the kind of the process you have, this gives a basic acceptance to both the parties. The facts relate that the person exists and it is relevant for the salespeople's functions and responsibilities to decide the roles and the basic abilities. It reduces the personal performance to a kind of basic levels where you want to enhance the abilities to that basic core areas. The process relates to that the salespeople need to make changes according to their basic counseling given or the kind of the feedback system which they have achieved in the market, and he can make changes according to the kind of the basic impact taken from the market, and here the support is given by the mentors or by the colleagues. The understanding is involved in such a way that what is the issue or the problem which is genuinely need to be understood in a term where you try to give a kind of a responsibility associated. You have to take a kind of interest which is related to a kind of interest of ownership. The change is basically the interest and the kind of the commitment required, and the kind of the understanding is how do we go about this change, what are the basic magnitude of change required in order to impact the kind of the situation, and what the managers will do to need this kind of basic impact in terms to modify the kind of changes. The action which is required from the parties is when to take action, what type of action is needed, and how to measure the improvement of the people involved with this impact. The basic is what is the kind of the additional help and the skills required to enhance the kind of the basic crystallization of the goal, what could be acquired in order to enhance the abilities, and how we can develop people to change. Now, the feedback styles which you get from the market or from the organization are both formal and informal. The formal styles are basically where a kind of a system of filling up forms and basically a system which is genuinely done on such a way that the rating is measured. But the informal methods basically relate to the kind of the informal conversation and a kind of a feedback where you try to judge people what is the kind of the report which is genuinely built for the people into the market. The formal kind of basic feedback is built which is planned. This is a kind of a scheduled meeting with the agents, and this is basically to set an agenda by which you measure people. This may have the inputs for some parties involved in terms. It is specific in focus. It is the data available to both the sides. The action plan is required. We have to have clear objectives, a kind of a time span, monitoring against the action plan, and the periodic feedback by review of meetings. But the informal methods basically is the opportunities you search. It is timely and very frequently. It is often the kind of the informal environment. It is the kind of the agreed agenda, but genuinely you can have the issues not related to the agenda also. It is the kind of the recipient which is involved to talk is basically a kind of person who is not related directly to the company, and he can be relaxed also. It is specific in focus. It gives a positive feedback. It raises a kind of a straightforward issue. It focuses on the performance rather on personal issues. It is both discussions and basically a kind of a interaction. You have to develop an action plan for this also. So, both the kind of the basic systems to build a feedback from the market are designed in such a way that these methods put an impact in a way where the employees are committed to change. Objective commitment to change is important because this is the basic need for the employees in terms to develop the organizational productivity. The organizations do involve and invest in these kinds of methods so as to enhance the kind of the basic relationship between the employee and the company. The company has to understand the employees and give the training and the kind of the basic mentorship according to the basic skills required to enhance the kind of the impact into the market. Now, what could be the impact in order to bring out the changes? How do we establish a kind of a rapport, and how do we establish it in an equal method? How do we control the content? It is how do we involve in a two-way communication and a discussion. It is presenting the benefits of change to the salespeople. How do we close an agreement or a commitment, and how do we use the tools of communication process in terms so as to build a questionnaire by listening, by benefit selling, negotiating principles and body languages. So, these are the basic issues which you have to decide that how you are going to apply the kind of the technique so as to bring about the kind of the change in the organization. The stages of the change related to the kind of the commitment to enhance the value for the organization relate the basic stages. First is you have to present the data, you have to state all the issues, agree into the interpretations, develop a kind of a common understanding, sell benefits for the change, obtain a kind of agreement, summarize the kind of the basic issues regularly, identify the options to address the situations and evaluate the alternatives. The outcome of these efforts relates to a kind of a development of agreed action plan and objectives. It ensures the action plan can be implemented by the salesperson within his resources and skills limitation. It is to set, review the time span and the benchmarks. It is to develop the progress monitoring and reporting criteria. It basically helps the salespeople to agree and support his needs. It is the write-up of the total program. So this is the kind of the systematic effort which genuinely adds value to the organization. We genuinely have to establish a system which is result oriented and which enhances the understanding of the organization in terms so as to impact the basic discipline of the organization. Employees' discipline is important because this kind of evaluation basically helps the employees to match up with the standards set up by the companies. Now, what is discipline? Discipline is basically a kind of a progressive impact which is a step-by-step program designed to correct the performance problems. It is not merely the compliance of the problems but to understand the problems. According to Hot Stove, discipline is an immediate, consistent and interpersonal response to the behavior with a warning. We have to genuinely relate to the kind of the performance which is kind of basic desire in terms to enhance a kind of an impact which builds a positivity and a kind of enthusiastic ability in terms to build up with the sales volume. The employee discipline basically adds up to a kind of a good communication system in the organization. It has basically a kind of a definite line of authority deciding who's at the management level and who's at the subordinate level. It is the kind of the impact which enhances the training value, and it also enhances the kind of the work schedules which have to be carried in a systematic way. It creates good working conditions. The behavioral problems of the people in terms related to their attendance, conduct and work performance are genuinely improved if discipline is inculcated through performance measurement and the evaluation techniques. It is a kind of an impact which basically relates to the kind of the disciplinary action and the corrective measures taken in order to improve the organizational's basic impact given to the terms where you increase the productivity. An employee who is not performing genuinely has to be looked after and a kind of action has to be taken. You have to take and try to discuss a kind of an impact which could be a disciplinary plan where you try to modify and change the employee. Let's talk about what could be done if the kind of the performance measurement report is not positive or if the rating is very low. You have to be calm, you have to be fair, you have to be informed what the employees are doing, and we have to be clear and positive about the kind of the action plan designed to change the employee. The basic counseling and the kind of the disciplinary action both have to be taken simultaneously so that we are in a kind of a process where face-to-face communication is genuinely designed in such a way that it builds a relational mode of conversation. It is the kind of the discipline which is impacting in such a way that you penalize the employees who are not performing, and you have to build up a kind of a resource impact in terms so as to basically give a kind of an impact which is positive. The role of the supervisor is basically to balance the organizational need with the employee's need, so that basically the employees add up to the value of the organization. Sometimes employees don't perform or the kind of the evaluation is not positive because maybe the employee is not in the problem but the kind of the work conditions are hindering the performance. So the causes of the failure of accomplishment at work could relate that the employee doesn't know how to perform the work, or it is the kind of the lack of instructions from the management side. It could be something that is hindering in terms of the frustration. It is the kind of the physical or the mental stress which is impacted in such a way that the organizational work conditions do give an impact at this level. The attitude of the supervisors and the attitude of employees both are important. And if it is a kind of a negative attitude, or it is a kind of a commitment which could not be completed by human abilities, could be the cause of the failure of the employees not to perform in the work field. The consequences of failing to take actions relates to the kind of the increased workload of the employees. It could be the low morale in the company. It could be that the problems are there with the company also, and it is a kind of acceptable condition which genuinely the employees do face in terms where they try to genuinely have a behavior which is manipulated according to the kind of the acceptable norms which prevail in the industry. So sometimes it is the kind of the bad behavior of the other people which is not ethical, impacts their work conditions also. So counseling is important. It is a kind of a direct face-to-face interaction where you try to understand the employee and try to identify the problems. The purpose of counseling is basically to communicate the concerns for the employee. It is basically to communicate the cause and the kind of the impact in terms of performance. We have to identify the avenues for improvement and improve the employee performance. Now, when to counsel? This is important because you have to decide the course of action where you need a kind of situation where both the employee and the supervisors have time and they can come in a conversation. This is the kind of the acceptable condition where both are at ease. The counseling process is a kind of a session which you have to conduct with the employees. But before the session, you have to define your objectives. You have to have all the documents available. You have to review all the facts. You have to create an outline and then arrange for privacy with the employee. You have to verbally inform him that what they are going to discuss and how the kind of the action will be taken so as to change him. The counseling process basically involves a kind of an environment where you try to set a positive tone. You have to describe the problem in such a way that the employee is at ease. Ask him and then listen. Correct the situation and try to give him a kind of impact where he is understood. Try to conclude the session with a positive note. We must have a kind of a positive disciplinary action where termination is not important but building is important. Change is important. Remodifying of behavior is important. Positive discipline is important because this is the kind of the basic technique where you have to build a kind of environment where you try to change the employees in such a way that their behavior is modified, in such a way that they have enhanced confidence and a kind of faith in the company's basic abilities to look after them. The employees have to be treated in such a way that they have a fair discipline process. The discipline process should not harass the employees, but it should be supportive and it should give advantages to the employees. We have to guide them and we have to build them. We have to give them the direction so as to build a kind of a method. Now, discipline in terms of evolution has reached to a stage where we have a kind of an interaction with the employees. The comparison methods of the traditional with the modern methods have changed. The old system of discipline was to basically coach and counseling, and it was basically involving with the step where you had a kind of a verbal reprimand, you have a written warning and then kind of the termination. But the positive and the modernized impact is basically a kind of a discipline without punishment. It is a kind of a positive contact with the kind of the performance improvement techniques. It is a kind of a formal disciplinary action and a transaction which you try to impact in such a way that the employees built up. You give a kind of a reminder 1 and a reminder 2, and then you make a kind of a mutual decision. If things are not working, tell the employee to leave the organization. But this decision has to respect both the parties. The company has to be respected and the employee has to be respected. He has to search the job according to his ability. The performance evaluation is a method by which we rate the employee's basic ability. If the kind of the changes are suggested, they could be improved by counseling and by coaching could be improved. Training could be given, but if methods do not work, the company cannot bear the losses of not performing or non-performing employees. We have to change the kind of the impact in terms of building the sales people team. The team has to be solid, it has to be strong, because this is the foundation for the success of the company. We have to build a team which genuinely has a vision and a mission of the companies to be carried to the market. We have to have performance oriented people who understand the ethics of being committed to duty, the ethics of performing well, and the ethics of genuinely understanding the jobs in such a way that you have the product knowledge, the customer knowledge, and the impact to bring about a change in the market. The market is important, the trends of upgrowth are important, and here you have to grow up with the company's sales so as to enhance your personal growth. I hope the students must have understood the concept of performance evaluation, the impact of performance evaluation on the kind of the basic environment of the company, and if the performance evaluation is done in a corrective way, what is the impact in terms where we try to enhance the values and the abilities of the people, and how it could result the kind of the impact in a positive way. Thank you, students.